Welcome everybody to TheTitleFight.com. Gordie Tamayo, Steve Gallegos, and Brandon Stubbs here. Going to touch base on yesterday's bouts. We had a whole full card on both ends from Showtime and on HBO. Back-to-back, had some good fights, had some not so good fights as far as entertaining factor was concerned. But we're going to kick it off on the Showtime piece. Brandon, I know you said you had a little hard time kind of getting through the whole deal. Kicking off the televised portion of the night, we had a couple good fights, so to speak, on paper anyways, but ended up being a different story. You know, starting off with Lara and Trout. Steve, I'll get your opinion first off here. On paper, as we had said, you know, it seemed to be a pretty good matchup. I mean, technician versus technician in two really skilled boxers. However, we've seen, you know, Lara a little bit being content just by boxing on the outside, not really wanting to engage, and Trout trying to make a fight happen, just wasn't really able to get into any kind of a rhythm and almost looked lost on various occasions. What was your overall perception of how that played out?
Total cat and mouse game, you know. Austin Trout, you know, just kept on trying to press the action, chase Lara around the ring pretty much all night. Wasn't able to land anything significant, wasn't able to get anything started, you know. Erislandy Lara just stood on the outside, saw everything that was coming, and just picked his shots. I mean, he had his way the entire night. That knockdown in the 11th was a sweet shot right there, you know, to put Trout down. I almost thought he put him out, you know. Wouldn't have been such a bad thing for that fight to end during that time because it was, you know, it was a total bore of a fight. It was the worst case scenario that we expected. You know, Lara did look good for the most part. Trout, it was just a bad matchup of styles, you know, wrong kind of fight for him to take after losing a big fight to Canelo Alvarez. So, you know, Trout needs to go back to the drawing board, you know, get a couple fights in against some fighters that he can pretty much look good against. They're taking these bad matchups, you know, big names, bad matchups.
Yeah, very unfortunate for him. I mean, it would have been a nice win on his belt there if he would have been able to actually pull it off there. He just wasn't able to do it with this stylistically, just wasn't the greatest, like you said. Going forward, right off the bat, you know, Lara was very bold in saying that he basically just gave him a clinic and took him back to the school of Cuban boxing, which, you know, all credit to him. He did pull it off. It just wasn't entertaining from a fan-friendly factor. He called out Canelo, like some other people are doing as well, which we'll get to in just a minute as well. But matching up Lara against a guy like Canelo, do you see something like that taking place there, Brandon? I mean, it's a pretty risky fight, isn't it? I mean, Lara is visibly a good boxer. Could pull that off, could spell trouble for Canelo, or do you see something like that actually taking place?
Absolutely not. I mean, for the simple fact this is a business, and with Lara's style of fighting, I don't think it's going to be something that's friend-friendly, something that's going to be easy to sell from Golden Boy's aspect. And then, you know, you have to look at it from this angle. Is that something you really want to throw Canelo right into after what happened with him in September against Floyd Mayweather? Mm-hmm. That would be real good to help build that young man's self-confidence back up. You need to throw him somebody that he can easily break down, that will be a friend-friendly fight to watch, and then maybe consider something like Lara down the road towards maybe the end of the year, since he is scheduled to fight 3 times this year. Maybe have Lara fight someone else, hope that he loses, and then you don't have to worry about ever crossing that bridge with him if you're Canelo's people.
Sure. Going forward on the bout, we had on the card there, we had, you know, Devin Alexander taking on Sean Porter. Devin Alexander has had some tough luck in the past with trying to get some big-name matchups, and taking on Sean Porter, who had been on a pretty good winning streak coming up and landed this opportunity, took full advantage of it, and just seemed to have overwhelmed Devin Alexander and ended up taking that belt back with him. Steve, what's your take on how this actually played out with, you know, Devin Alexander having the tough breaks that he's had in the past, not really able to win over the fans, and gets a fight like this with Porter, who he was the favorite for, and all of a sudden, you know, he's on the other end of a decision loss versus a guy that was just young and hungry and, you know, showed all that in the ring and ended up taking the belt home. You think Porter's going to have a little bit better luck and drawn attention to himself than Alexander did?
Yes, I think so, because Porter, you know, is a more fan-friendly type of fighter. We've seen him in the past. He's been able to go in, you know, and go for the gusto. He's had some very impressive performances, impressive knockouts. You know, we haven't seen so much of that from Devin Alexander. And, you know, going into this fight, I gave Porter a really good chance to win it. And turned out, kind of like what some of us were expecting, that Porter would come in, very hungry and take to Alexander and steal a decision, which he did. Not exactly steal it; he actually earned that decision. But yeah, this is what we were kind of expecting going into the bout.
So what do you think's on the table for Porter next? I mean, he's in a division here where there are some solid matchups. He's maybe not going to land any major big fight right off the bat there, Brandon. But can you kind of pick anybody in particular who you might see being able to match him up with next?
Well, what they'll probably do is they'll probably throw in Paulie Malignaggi, quite honestly. With the two gentlemen both being on the same card, Paulie still being a name, with the fight back up in Brooklyn, it'll be a draw, it'll be a world title fight. It would make some sort of sense in many ways, because Porter's not really to where he can really say he's among the best at 147, so you can't put him in a conversation with a Floyd Mayweather, a Timothy Bradley, a Pacquiao, or a Marquez, or anybody from top-ranked side, because we know that won't happen anyway. So a fight with Paulie Malignaggi makes sense. It should be easy to do, and like I said, put it in Brooklyn. Fans will come out. They are showing that is a fight town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a bad analysis there. So maybe the fight that he's chasing after, that Malignaggi is chasing after, he's already been pretty vocal about it, that he wants to win her out of Maidana and Broner, but they might be moving on and forward to bigger and better things if it plays out how most people are predicting with that bout. Going into that main event, battle for hometown bragging rights there in Brooklyn with Judah and Malignaggi. I don't know about you guys, but I was a little bit disappointed in that fight. Expected Judah to bring a little bit more fire than what he did. He showed more fire at the end of the bout when they were getting in each other's face, and he did for the whole fight there. Steve, what do you think was going on that just made it so Zab couldn't pull the trigger on that one? I mean, is he just at that age now where he's just shot, or could he not just get in the rhythm for some other reason?
Well, it could be at that age where he's shot, Zab Judah, has been a great fighter all throughout the years, and even in some of his losses, he's performed very well, He performed, well during the Mayweather fights against Cotto, in his last fight against Andy Garcia. It didn't look like he had it no more, He just couldn't get motivated whatsoever. His dad, Yoel, was firing him up in the corner, and Zab just looked like, as if he didn't care, So in a fight like this in his hometown against, a fighter like Paulie Malignaggi, I'm not sure why he wasn't able to get up for it. It was a huge crowd, huge turnout. So I'm not sure what was going on through Zab's head, but it doesn't look good. And if he's going to continue to get performances like that, he needs to hang them up.
Yeah. No, it may just be that time, if he's had a good run at it, maybe it is time for him to hang him up. Brandon, any last thoughts on that one there, on going forward with Zab? I mean, do you think he's at that point where he just needs to call it good and move on?
Absolutely. I completely agree with Big Steve there. I think that really, since the Khan fight, Zab hasn't looked the same. Granted, he's shown flashes in some fights, but really I would say since that fight, he's never been the same fighter. He is definitely on the decline, and it's one of those things too. You got to really wonder if that was just a check grab, that was just a money grab on his end. Will we see him fight again? Probably. He still does carry a name and carry some weight. But does he need to continue to fight? Really, no. There's nothing else left for him to prove in the sport. If he's going to continue to fight, he's going to have to fight at a much lower level. And as far as, Paulie wanting the winner of Maidana Broner, I don't like his chances against either one of those guys if it were to happen. His movement would give Maidana a problem. We've already seen the Broner fight. Granted, it was a little bit closer than what some thought it would be, but I think in a rematch it would be a Broner and a blowout, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. So I think for Paulie it's going to be time to move on, find another Al Heyman fighter to fight, and get another check up there in Brooklyn.
Definitely. Over on Rival Network with HBO, probably the best fight of the evening here across the board here was the 6-round warfare between Kirkland and Tapia. Went 6 rounds. You had a guy like Tapia who's been a name that's been being built up. A lot of big momentum being built up behind him as the next, Arturo Gatti over there of Jersey. And game fighter. He has a lot of the qualities that people would be looking into for a fighter, but all of a sudden we've seen Kirkland turn back the clock here, reunited with Ann Wolf, and all of a sudden you've seen the beast in him come back out. He was getting hit pretty good by Tapia, but relentless as ever. Ended up being able to chop him down, and towards the end of that, Tapia was being held up by Steve Smoger and just got beaten up pretty good. What was your overall interpretation of that bout there, Steve? Or actually, Brent, let me toss this over to you, since I know you caught that one. This version of Kirkland going forward, do you think we're going to get to see this version of Kirkland go back in place, or is he going to continue back on that roller coaster that he's been on for some time?
With Kirkland, it's always going to be a crapshoot. We've kind of heard the same things from him before in post-fight interviews. I will say this kind of really reminded me of the Angulo fight that he was in a couple of years back. Just kind of the way the action was and how he was able to withstand and keep the pressure on his opponent. Him and Ed Wolf do make a good combination, but that style of fighting, there's going to be pure boxers that he fights at 154. That's going to give him trouble. He's not going to be able to pressure them. They can, outside of the pocket, just kind of pick him apart because, let's face it, he is more of a brawler than a boxer, per se. But, he's always going to have the puncher's chance and going to put him through hell. So while he's in that ring, everything he does in the fight is going to be light work compared to what he did in the training camp, which is always going to give him an advantage over anybody he faces going forward.
Very true. Going forward for Kirkland, he had some of his corner that was shouting out they want a match with Canelo, and now that Kirkland's actually kind of moved on over and is being promoted by 50 Cent, what's on the table for him? 50 Cent finally has, a fighter who's actually putting a W on the record here. What can you see taking place here, Steve? Is there going to be a big money fight for him down the road, or is he going to still be kind of struggling to find another matchup here coming down the road?
I'm not so sure what's going to happen in the future for Kirkland. He is a big name. He is a fighter. He is a fighter that most other fighters would like to fight. But being that he's with 50 Cent, I'm not sure what kind of promotional pull they're going to have for him. He doesn't seem to be connected to any network per se. So he can, 50 can make deals with, basically anybody right now, as being the fact that he's pretty much a free agent. So why not? When I talked with Alfredo Angulo when he came back last year about a possible rematch with James Kirkland, he said he was willing to do it. So if those two sides can come together, why not give the fans a great rematch? Because it was a great fight the first time. Why not do it again?
Mm-hmm. No, that'd be great. Wouldn't mind seeing that at all. That'd be a bloodbath in the making there. So, kind of the future's unknown for James Kirkland as it has been in the past. You just never know what you're going to get, like you said there, Brandon. So we'll see what happens with him. Saving the I guess we might as well just say it, the snoozer for last here. Unfortunately, anyways, Guillermo Rigondeaux took on Joseph Agbeko here in a matchup that we were, hoping to see more than what we got here. Rigo's been criticized left and right for his style of boxing. He openly said that he's going to be trying to be more active and trying to engage more, throw more punches, and try to give the crowd a little bit more so than what he's done in the past. And to his credit, looked like he was somewhat trying to do that. Agbeko, who had switched trainers over here with Roger Mayweather, you would have thought that maybe that did some good for him, but just was not in the mood or something to engage with Rigo. Maybe it was his power that got to him. Maybe it was something else. But either way, we didn't get to see much out of him, and a one-sided fight that Rigo just shut him out once again. What was your overall interpretation of having to painstakingly watch all the way through that match there, Brandon?
Yeah. It's one of those things, it was kind of, it's sad in one regard because Rigondeaux is a extremely highly skilled fighter, extremely highly skilled boxer. Let's take nothing away from him there. But, the crowd there was leaving as the fight was going on. I noticed in the second round, it's like the arena was almost bare, which is kind of unheard of, in the sport of boxing, that your main event, that everyone leaves. It's just one of those things to where it's going to be a tough sell for him to be an actual star in the world of boxing and make money, because he has a style that no one wants to watch. We understand what he's doing. A lot of us do. We completely understand what he's doing, but it's just hard to watch. A Donaire rematch may be a little bit different. Donaire would definitely have to push the pace and actually make, Rigondeaux work and make him try to do different things and make him get out of his comfort zone. But until that happens, all of his fights are going to be the same. They're going to be just a replay of the fight before and the fight before that. It's hard to watch. You understand what he's doing, but it's just so doggone hard to watch.
Sure. Now, I know, commentators have kind of brought up potential matchups with him, like a fight with Lomachenko, for example, but in reality, you really can't think of anybody in that division that's going to be able to do something and make a different fight than what he's able to do already. I mean, he makes everybody look bad, or they make themselves look bad because they just can't figure him out. So, that's just unfortunate for him. But to what Andre Ward had said at one point in time during that bout, he may not be Mayweather or bust, Mayweather or bust type of fighter, but maybe Hall of Fame worthy and be able to rack up a resume that still lands him a position like that down the road by the time his career's over, making a better living than he could have done back home in his native Cuba. So maybe that's okay for him. Is it okay for fight fans? Maybe not so much. Steve, what do you see going forward with Rigo? I mean, does this just further put a black eye on him and say, hey, HBO doesn't want him back on the airwaves, and he's going to be struggling once again to find a fight on the airwaves here?
Yeah, other than the fight with Lomachenko, I'm not sure who else is really out there for him that's going to, draw interest, in seeing Rigondeaux fight. They continue to showcase him on HBO. It's just going to, bore fans to death. You're not going to, he's not obviously going to be able to hold his own, as a main event attraction, as you saw last night. When I watched the fight, yeah, you're right. Most of the crowd was gone, by the second round in that fight, so he doesn't have the fan appeal, that some other fighters have, and it is sad because, he's very skillful and he's really good at what he does. He just doesn't, he just doesn't appeal to mainstream fight fans. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, who's out there for him. Top Rank is going to continue to have him, go through their stable of fighters, but other than that, there's nothing more out there for him.
Well, this weekend we got another fight that's been building some buzz, and as Broner said, this is a pay-per-view fight without being charged for pay-per-view, so it's a free pay-per-view fight according to him. The self-proclaimed number 3, 4, and 5 on everybody's pound-for-pound list, according to himself, is going to be taking on hard-hitting Marcos Maidana. Any change in predictions, fellas, here? Brandon, I know you had your initial prediction that you had stated with us here, but was there anything that has changed leading up to fight week, or are you still kind of on the same lines here as far as how this is going to play out?
I was, unfortunately, I was away yesterday actually covering MMA, and oddly enough, while I was there, I met a guy who does PR work for Showtime, mm-hmm. and he had said, while they were doing the filming for Adrien Broner's All Access, he says a lot of what you see is just him doing that for a camera and for entertainment and for attention. He says all he does is train. Mm-hmm. He's an extremely hard worker, an extremely hard trainer, which really threw me for a loop when he said that. So with that being stated, I look for Adrien Broner to go out and absolutely destroy Marcos Maidana. I think this is going to be something he's going to try to prove a point, and the point is going to be that he is amongst the best in the world. And I think that he's kind of, he knows a lot of us look at him as being somewhat of a joke from what he does outside of the ring. But I think this is going to be the moment he's going to really flip the switch, and he's going to try to make a statement and say, come 2014, this is going to be his year. You're going to have to put him in the top amongst the pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And I think this is going to be his statement fight. This is going to be his breakout bout, and I really do look for him to absolutely destroy Maidana, which is something I really didn't think I was going to be saying, but now, in hindsight, and knowing what I know, this is going to end up being really ugly.
Steve, you have been, from the gate, you have been very vocal as far as your opinion on Adrien Broner as well. You want to kind of fill us in on your end as well? I mean, are you still along the same lines as Brandon too there, or anything changed since last week?
No, absolutely not. I'm still in agreement with Brandon. Adrien Broner is going to go out there and he's going to dominate. He is the future pound-for-pound star, heir apparent to the Floyd Mayweather's crown, like it or not. It's something we're going to have to deal with, in the coming years, because Broner is the future of the sport. And I don't see very many fighters that are going to be able to beat him, because he is just that skilled. He is that good. His boxing IQ is out of this world. You know, he's just going to take over once Mayweather rides off into the sunset.
Well, there you heard it from the Title Fight fam. Like it or not, Adrien Broner's around. Doesn't seem like he's going anywhere unless Marcos Maidana can prove otherwise come fight night this coming up Saturday. I want to thank you all for tuning in once again. Gordie Tamayo, Steve Gallegos, and Brandon Stubbs with TheTitleFight.com. Make sure you take a peek over at www.punchtotheface.com. Support my boy Brandon, covering all your MMA action there as well. Until next time, signing off.